afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We've had a very engaging and intellectually stimulating day of conversations with business leaders, IT leaders, digital practitioners, data champions. Since the morning, we've covered the insurance sector, the NBFC sector, and I think the panel that we had before this did a brilliant level set in terms of the business challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead of the NBFCs. And I think it was a wonderful preamble to this panel that we're now going to do. The topic for this panel is how to build a resilient customer service for the future. And when entrepreneur and professional musician Derek Sivers said that customer service is the new marketing, he really hit the nail on the head. Because an organization's brand is a story that is unfolding across its multiple touch points. And the customers today expect nothing less than a glitch-free, resilient, agile, and personalized service. This goes a long way in not just meeting the customer expectations, but also creating that customer delight factor, because customer delight is one of the greatest ROI that organizations can expect to tap into today. And this is very relevant for the NBFC sector, which has always been a part, has always played a big part in promoting the inclusive growth story of the country. They have traditionally offered personalized financial services to the bank excluded, new to credit customers, the customers from small Mofussil towns, tier 4, tier 5 cities, the MSMEs, and they really have to now take that journey forward by offering them the hyper-personalized services and services that are highly available, that, like I said earlier, provide that customer delight factor, because the flip side of a poor customer service is very high in terms of high cost, high churn, customer attrition, delays, breaks in the customer experience. And today in this churn and burn economy, when the customers vote with their feet, it's a huge risk that organizations would really try to steer away from. And with that, I would want the great minds here to discuss this topic further. So I would like to start off with you, Dinesh. Dinesh, you're seeing that this is an attention economy. People want to feel empowered. They are empowered by the digital interfaces, the devices. How do you see the emerging and evolving customer service landscape in the NBFC industry today?
Thanks, Sneha. So first, because our topic is around customer service, I think so. One of the things that I see all NBFCs that have evolved and graduated is customer service is now equated to customer success. So what I really mean is that today the customer is pretty much ubiquitous, as in whether it is, he coming through a social media channel, or there is somebody who is trying to contact us through an email or an SMS or through WhatsApp. The customer is everywhere. And a lot of NBFCs have now graduated to servicing the customers across all these channels. What we are now going to look at next is how do we make the experience consistent and cost effective. So this is one pivot that I've seen all NBFCs have graduated towards. Next, there was a time wherein we've had enough instances wherein we were very reactive to what the customer really wanted from a servicing standpoint. Today, we've all graduated to see how we've become very proactive and predictive. And so we are out there, not waiting for the customer to come to us. We are able to proactively engage with the customer and give the customer more than what they really need from a servicing standpoint. And the third, I would say, is, actually there's a fourth one that is coming to my mind. But the third that really comes to my mind is most of the NBFCs actually started off because we gave personalized offerings. But now we've moved to hyper-personalized care. What I really mean is that we now don't only do a KYC, but we know our customers. we actually know more about our customers. We don't really need to go and ask customers, what their details are, but there's enough data available in the public domain that makes us well informed before we engage with our customer. And last but not the least, I would look at from a servicing standpoint, while we always, handheld our customer and give them an assisted journey, we've now graduated to what we call as do-it-yourself, self-service journeys. So I see a lot of NBFCs now moving to the next level, that how can you have a good combination of man and machine helping the customer, first of all, meet their needs, and also giving them a different customer experience. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Dinesh. I think you really set us off to a flying start. That was a wonderful level set on some of the key pivots that you've identified for customer service. You spoke about the ubiquitous customer. There were talks about the omni-channel approach, but like you mentioned, it's now moved towards on my channel, where you want to meet the customer on their preferred channel. You also brought in the need for, an experience that is consistent and cost effective. You also spoke about customer service that should be proactive and predictive with the usage of data and other cognitive capabilities. You spoke about hyper-personalization. That's the big ask of the customers today, and also about knowing your customers really well, tapping into their information that will then help you build the trust score, the credit score, the social score with your customer. And also you highlighted the fact about the DIY approach with which the customers expect now that they are empowered by digital interfaces, different channels that organizations have built to self-service, to make purchases. Very relevant points in terms of the business imperatives that are facing the NBFC sector. I'd like to move on to Abhijit. Abhijit, you heard some of the points that Dinesh raised in terms of the business imperatives that he's identified. So what are some of the technology and digital related strategies that NBFCs are working on to deliver on each of these imperatives?
Yeah, thank you, Sneha. I think for NBFCs, what I've seen, I used to work for a bank now, but if you look at NBFCs, I think most NBFCs have carved a niche for themselves. So if you look at housing, the name which will come to your mind would be HDFC. If it's gold loan, it could be a Muthoot, So the way I think the NBFC has gone around is, in some of the products, they've actually specialized a lot. And that speaks, on how they have... And
the customers identify with the need that they fulfill, which is a great success for a brand.
Correct. Like if you ask consumer durables, I'm sure, everybody will say Bajaj, for example. Yeah. So somewhere the NBFCs have identified a niche. They've really done it at scale. So if you were to talk about HDFC as a company, we have a balance sheet which might be bigger than many of the banks. Yeah. And not many people know that HDFC only has 3,000 people. Now, because the merger is happening, many of you might know. So it is only 3,000 people serving a 7 lakh crore balance sheet across 500 locations, and really doing a turnaround time on a home loan is less than a week, and within a week, if a customer contacts us, about 60 to 70% of the loans are actually done within less than a week. Yeah. At that pace, you can't work without technology. So what technology has really given us, ability to scale. So this kind of a book run by 3,000 people, if you get into the balance sheet or etc., this may be one of the most efficient companies in the country. Yeah. So that's one thing which has really helped us, from scaling point of view. The other things which I feel what NBFC is doing really well, and it speaks, as you can identify a product with a company, is they are able to profile the customers really well. So all the kind of information, the ease at which, it's profiling not only at a cost to the company, but also it is very efficient for the end consumer. He doesn't have to really run around. There's all these ecosystems that have emerged in India, be it Aadhaar, be it account aggregator. So it's very easy. And, both from the point of view of customer as well as from the point of view of the organization or bank, it is actually very efficient. Yeah. This actually helps us, leading us to the right customer. So what we are doing, for example, is as soon as somebody is hitting us on our websites or coming through a third-party portal, we are actually able to identify the propensity to buy a house. In some of the analytics that we do, we are kind of able to understand, is he really going to buy a house immediately? And very few parameters are coming, but you would kind of do a pen picture of a customer that, this is the customer who will actually work for us. And what we are working on is, that how can this person be aligned to the right representative who can help him in this whole journey? Because, for us, we are part of the journey where we give a loan, but it's also important that the person buys a right house also. At the end of the day, a house is in many people's lives the only investment that they make, and a sizable proportion of their savings. Yeah.
And the second most biggest decision after marriage.
And biggest decision. And, in this whole life cycle, if you many of us would have bought a home, there's so many opportunities to drop out. Kitchen is not in the right direction. It's not facing northeast. It's not on the right floor. So it's all these things, when you are selling a home loan, many times.
It has to tick so many boxes.
Tick so many boxes. It's not like buying a mobile phone. It's still a very easy decision compared to, buying a house. So all those kinds of things, how do we, empower our sales staff, on the ground? So for example, we have a complete digital application process. But wherever he's dropping down, we send an insight to the salesperson on his app, because we tried other things, sending it on email, sending it on various channels. But, the person who is actually selling the whole loan is able to understand and appreciate. So it's important to also be empathetic to the person who is actually buying the house, so that, while he's taking a loan, you can also guide him in his decision-making process. Some of the other things which have really helped, in today's world is about, decisioning of credit pre and post both, so helps us, how to come to a conclusion very quickly, how to do the disbursements faster. And the biggest thing, which I feel has become very easy in the past, if you had to give a feedback, you have to go to the branch, write a letter and things like that. Now at every part of the journey with the kind of platforms, you can actually get a good sense, so what we're trying to do is, because home loan is not just, one shot, I've given a personal loan and I'm out of it. There is a journey. So we look at, what's the kind of experience they get at first disbursement, what's the kind of experience is getting a second disbursement, and how is that customer actually walking through his entire life cycle. Yeah. And one of the things which has come, which, I am new to the company, but what I've seen is there are third generation borrowers as well, so their grandfather who has borrowed from the same company, father has bought, now the son has also bought. So customer service is actually at the key of it. So no matter whatever you do as a strategy, you have to identify a customer. So one of the things which we are consciously doing is that, typically it's very fashionable to talk that digital is all about youngsters, and ultimately it's all about everybody. So we look at, can the journeys be for everyone, not only for a digitally native person, so at every point where there's a dropout, actually a feedback comes to my salesperson or to the service person, so that he can actually help the individual. And that's how, we are trying to use technology, at least within the context of HDFC. But I do see even other competitors or even other players like Muthoot, Bajaj or others also trying to follow similar or even better strategies. Yeah.
Right. That was a very well-rounded answer, and beautifully blended into what Dinesh had said as the context. So you started out by talking about how NBFCs are building a niche for different product portfolios, different service offerings, and the customers are seeing value in it. They are working around the customer's sentiments, their needs and preferences. You also brought in this angle of speed of credit delivery, the speed of disbursement, which again is very important, because customer loyalty is such an oxymoron in this digital era that the moment they see a friction or a delay in your service, they would likely move on to the next industry rival that you have. You also brought in the angle of using data to stitch together a customer story, to remove friction across the customer journey milestones. You spoke about the customer sentiment analysis, trying to see where the breakages are happening and then trying to resolve some of those problems. You brought in the angle of how a good customer service and a customer experience can help you build loyal customers, brand evangelists across generations. And that's critical, because digital is is not just about serving the digital native millennial workforce, but also the digital refugees, the customer segment that is not, doesn't take to digital like fish to water, but would require some sort of an assisted journey into the digital area. So these are some of the very relevant points that you brought about, and that's very critical because as an NBFC, you really need to walk in your customers' shoes, not just the first mile, but the last mile as well. And with that, I would like to move on to Vishal. That's a perfect segue into your question, because you're serving the last mile customers. You have a 10 million customer base across the length and breadth of the country. You are serving the underserved segment of the population where the literacy levels are not all that high. The exposure to digital delivery systems is not that high. So how are you empowering your loan officers with a high tech and a high touch process for service delivery?
Yep. So thanks, Sneha. So thank you for kind of giving a brief on the landscape of the microfinance business in the country. I represent a microfinance lender, and we operate out of about 70% districts in the country. We have about 600 in the country. We operate about 443. And the locations we operate out of are deep rural. Okay, so these are tier 5 and beyond. Without getting into the numbers, the challenge there are of a different kind. It's not just about vernacular and related to the subject we're talking about, which is customer experience. By the way, microfinance as a business, as the last panel was also talking about, was the leader in use of digital and technology in the country. If you talk about loan in minutes, though it might be phygital for us, because my loan officer right at the village identifies the customer and there is a whole joint liability group program which runs, but the loan still gets sanctioned at an authorization of that customer who's a woman borrower, deep rural, and I'll say that multiple times because when I come to customer experience and how we're trying to solve that, you'll be able to relate to that. So the loan is disbursed in minutes straight into her account, and now with IndusInd Bank account. So having said that, customer experience for us is how do you kind of give that customer, the woman borrower who's an entrepreneur in her own rights, taking a small ticket size loan of about 30,000 odd, how do you give her the moment of truth as fast as possible, right? So that's on the delivery side of things. That's what the business has kind of, that problem has been licked. Today, in spite of such huge distribution of the kind I talked about when I'm talking about myself and other microfinance companies in the country, that problem has been solved. So in a way, that is the solution for customer experience. On the other side, if the customer, unlike NBFCs, bank, where the customer wants to kind of reach out to you, I still see, very honestly, a lot of headroom in the microfinance world. And the challenges, and it's purely because of that challenges, because the customer, though the smartphone penetration would be about 70%, 75% in the family, the problem is the use of the technology and how to reach out to us, right? So it is an assisted model of sorts. And I'll build up on my example of what customer service is, what I do, because I can only talk about my business. So my loan officer, which are about 30,000 in the country today, the last mile guys servicing these villages, they meet about, they service, and it's a high touch model. They meet about 1.5 to 1.8 million such live customers every day. So I need to empower my loan officer to give the right customer experience, so to say, rather than expecting a customer, the millions of customers which we have, to wait for them to come. Though we have all the kind of tools, so we have a customer app where they can download their statements, they can reach out to us. But the real challenge is that adoption of technology for the class of or the segment of borrowers we're talking about is not there. So we try to solve it differently. We try to educate our loan officers. We try to give a standardized experience, try to get the bites of what the customer needs, and then try to solve it in the journey itself so that that problem doesn't come for the member itself. See, our borrower, the expectations are not too high. The loan should be there, the passbook should be there, she should know what she's paying for, the tenor over, she needs more money, it should come in time. Those are the kind of basic needs she has, right? It's pretty regulated, interest rates are regulated, everything is fine. Just the basic things like passbooks and what I talked about, which are all available to her, either through the loan officer or through the customer app. But as I said, adoption is the challenge. So we give the experience digitally through our loan officer who's there on the ground, who meets them every once a week. Yeah, so that's a long answer to a short question of yours, Sneha, but
right.
That's the real microfinance world.
Yes. And thank you so much for giving us a peek into some of the unique challenges and limitations that you have in terms of the customer demographics and the segments and the geographies. But how are you trying to work around that and ensuring that the least common denominator of the society also gets their credit needs serviced? Thank you so much for that, Vishal. And I'd like to move on to Yashoraj. Yashoraj, you represent a digital native company. In that sense, you have a tabula rasa in terms of your technology platforms. So how are you looking at building reliable, scalable customer services with the limited resources that you have? How are you making sure that you keep the model customer cost effective and yet very reliable and resilient?
Thanks a lot for that question, and glad to be here and to hear the amazing insights from the esteemed panel here. So I think not just for us, but for anybody in our space, it's a very, very relevant thing. And I'd start by saying that, and not just us, but all organizations today are moving towards a paradigm where customer service stops or ceases being just a department. It's a collective responsibility, because ultimately we are in business because of our customers. And you can't just tell that, okay, these are these 10 people or 20 people or 100 people who deal with customer service and everybody else deals with, say, an operations.
Every employee is a stakeholder in this game, because happy employees create happy customers.
Correct. So if so once you make that paradigm change in the mindset of everybody associated with the firm, there is a different value add that everybody wants to put in terms of how you can make that same customer's experience better, no matter which channel or which platform they're coming from. So that's one. Second is that when we talk about, there was a talk about hyper-personalization that just came in, I think that I'd also like to stress upon that point that it is important for organizations today to be very proactive when it comes to dealing with customers that come on a platform. If you're offering an X number of products on a Y number of platforms, you do collect decent amount of data with customer consent across different platforms, which allow you to then hyper-personalize your recommendations or offerings, as well as the user experience by itself, depending on who the customer is. And by doing so, you actually preempt a lot of customer sort of queries or customer interactions that they might be confused about by them not happening in the first place. Because while developing anything or any experience or any platform, people might say, okay, you know what, this is just a corner scenario or an edge case. But what we must think also about that edge case is the complete user experience for a customer, right? And whenever that happens, that leaves a customer dissatisfied. So making sure that you're personalizing your experience for anything and everything and every single customer that comes on our platforms becomes very, very paramount. The third thing I would highlight over here is the fact that when it comes to building a resilient customer service framework in the very traditional sense, when you talk about any platform out there, like you'll always see that customer service follows a very extreme Pareto principle that 20% or 10% of subjects account for 80% to 90% of sort of customer inquiries, complaints, escalations were to deal with, right? Because there are only that many sort of inquiries or issues or escalations or things that a customer might want to know about you. And then the first rule of thumb is that, you can go ahead and solve for them all the time. You kind of do that. You keep figuring out that what that new 20% is, right? And solve for them, figure out the next set of 20% and solve for that, right? And ultimately, as you launch new products, new services, that 20% mark keeps going up, right? And you can easily solve for that using sentiment analysis, customer recommendation insights that you have from your data, as well as just by sheer automation as well, instead of like having to have 1,000-member call center team of customer support agents that are having to solve that on call. So again, I'll probably stop at that, but that was my 2 cents on that question.
Wonderful. Yashoraj, so you brought in the need for an enterprise-wide ownership and commitment of the objective towards better customer service, resilient customer service. I think that's very critical because everyone in the organization, like I said earlier, needs to be a stakeholder in that game. You also spoke about the need for RPA and other tools, digital tools, to then be able to provide customer service at a scale. The need to recognize the fact that there are digital tools to take this journey forward and to be proactive. I'd like to take that point to Dipesh. Dipesh, while organizations see a clear value in providing resilient, reliable, agile, and at-scale customer service, but not most organizations really take very proactive steps towards it. In fact, only 40% of them have a proper, defined, comprehensive strategy around it. So why do you think that is the case, and what would be required to change that metric favorably?
Could you repeat the first part of the question? You want to make this, how do you make the system more resilient, right?
Yes. So what is it that why do you think organizations are missing the boat in this whole journey towards creating a better customer service strategy?
All right. Let's engage the audience this time. Okay. So I have a small question for all of you. Let's say you go to an online marketplace and you decide to purchase something from any marketplace, right? How many of you choose a traditional banking, experience such as net banking or debit card versus choosing a new age banking solutions like BNPL and etc.? If you choose the latter one more, please raise your hand. If you're more using BNPL or any other new age technologies compared to the other one, just raise your hand. I think there are a few ones, right? Okay, I have another question for you, right? So UPI was launched about 7-8 years ago, right? And the adoption is quite huge. How many, and in fact, banks got the first opportunity to implement UPI in their stack. But then there are other companies also providing the same solutions, right? How many of you are using other applications apart from bank in order to do fund transfer using UPIs? Almost everyone. And the last question is, let's say today you have to go to any marketplace out there to get a loan of, let's say 10,000 rupees. How many of you think that a banks or a traditional financial institutions can give that loan to you? Not many. So this is what the difference is. See, the beauty with the new age platforms or the technologies that they've been able to redefine the way customer experience is provided, right? So first definition, first we need to rethink the word customer service, right? It's no more a customer service and it's more of a customer experience now, wherein the customer, we already discussed, Dinesh also mentioned sometimes, and even Yash mentioned it a bit, right? Wherein you need to build an experience much more intuitive, much more simpler, wherein you don't realize that you are a part of a financial journey and you've completed it. So this is what I believe a traditional institutions or the one that are moving towards technology is trying to define, where fintechs have been able to crack it to a great extent, right? So I was discussing with a few friends of mine who are doing their innovations in Silicon Valley or somewhere, right? So the difference is that when there is a problem out there, right, we tend to solve just the problem, while they tend to build an experience around that problem. So I think that's the kind of innovation that is the need of the market in order to make sure that you are innovating in order to build a good experience for the customer, right? So for example, right, today if I had to call a bank just to maybe ask for a balance, or just to change a small detail. Right? I know it in my head that first I'll have to dial this number, then I'll have to dial this number, right? And then I'll have to dial this hash or star whatsoever, right? This is so badly trained in our head. This is something that has to change. So basically, in short, hyper localization or hyper customization for a customer. So I believe that's what is needed in near future, to make sure you're building an extensively powerful customer experience.
Right. So you spoke about the need for moving beyond customer service to creating a better customer experience. You also spoke about the need to not just solve the stated problem, but identify the opportunity that lies behind the stated problem to then build a customer experience around it. And I think as organizations move in their data and digital journey, they will try and figure that out and crack that code, while it is a very difficult ask, but hopefully organizations will get there in a period of time. Now, Abhijit, in your previous response, you brought about the fact that there are specific areas of your business that you're looking to improve with digital. So as NBFCs try to push their digital agenda, they enhance their customer service across the areas of quote management, underwriting, the claim management, payment processing. What are some of the strategies you're employing to provide a better customer service across each of these areas, and what are some of the hurdles you are combating along the way?
I think, as fellow panelists said very rightly, what happens, digital is never complete. Digital is an ongoing journey, and I think in banks, as you rightly said, they always try to adopt new technology, but you always love your sweetheart system, which was there. So IVR.
They can't part with their past because a segment of their customers are.
A past segment is there. You love the product, and unfortunately, you were born in a different age. So let's say the IVR started and you started using the IVR, but you cannot stop it, because new technology has come, or Amazon does not have a customer service number. Those things continue, and I think it's very right that as you progress, how do you leave back the past is something which the traditional companies grapple with, and I think it's a very, very valid point. And what we are trying to do is, as we move forward, we are trying to carry the values which have served us well in the past. So let's say if HDFC as a brand, when you say, I think the first thing which comes to my mind or others' mind is trust, is what we found, when we were doing our surveys. Trust, customer service, even simple things like, when we interviewed customers, was when you go to a branch, they serve you tea. Yeah. So small things like this we picked up, because digital is not, whatever said and done, we're still not in the age of
humanized experience.
We're not still in metaverse, or still, that when you're coming, I will look at your face recognition, and then all those things are great. And COVID really showed us that face recognition may not be true with mask on your face. Yeah. So what we looked at was, how do you take these small things, because he's interacting with your brand at various places. It's a website, it's an app. We are not complete in a journey yet, so don't take me wrong. We are still, started the journey, but these factors we are carrying with us. So it's trust, it's about customer experience. So how does trust, let's say, show in our systems? We don't want to get you over leveraged. We realize that when you are a youngster, you've just bought a house, I don't want to bombard you with offers, so that you can at least maintain your financial stability. So, things like that are actually ingrained in the system designs, or even in the products that we launch. So what we're looking at, frankly, I think what some of us have also said, that when you're coming for a home loan, how quickly can I actually tell you that you are eligible? So we, for example, launched a WhatsApp journey like everybody else, but we have made one asset which we are trying to use at various parts of a journey, so that you are sure that things are done. So looking at completely paperless journeys, when you have to apply for a loan, for example, 90% of our employed segment, more than 90% who is willing, is actually applying everything through a digital medium. And in many cases, the answer also is getting digitally. But, home ultimately is a physical product. Of course, paper, etc., deeds, etc., needs to be done. So that two processes we are trying to merge beautifully, so that the experience does not get compromised. Yeah. The other piece which we are working on is still work in progress, but we want to be available where the customer is. Yeah. For example, we started publishing our interest certificates on DigiLocker because we realized a lot of people are using DigiLocker. They don't really need to come to my app. I cannot give them the kind of experience, let's say, DigiLocker has, because all the documents are there. Why should he come to my app or my website to take the documents? We started pushing those documents. So simple philosophy, be where the customer is, yeah. And learn from, the new age nimble companies. There's no point saying we are a traditional company and being proud about it, but there's so much to learn from a Swiggy, so much to learn, from Zomato, Blinkit, all these things. Like we could really learn how to do a virtual RM from, let's say, Uber, how do you do things like that? So we are trying to see what we can learn from others in our omni-channel experience. Now, having said all that, it's beautiful. I have a 40-year legacy which I have to carry. Yeah. And he's just born yesterday, or, sorry, this is just joking, but they're born in digital native technologies. We are still got to carry, we still have to give you your...
The digital refugees.
Not refugee. I strongly object to it. You will still want your amortization schedule for last 15 years. You still want that. Yeah. You won't just say, don't give me because you've now become digital and sorry, I can only give it to you on WhatsApp and only 2 lines will come, So we also have to service your past needs. Yeah. So that's the kind of overhang that we carry. So at the same time, it's like, you're flying a plane and we are changing the engine. So some of the challenges for us is that, I can't let all of a sudden, tell you that 5 days my system is down because we are doing a transformation. We have to do everything in a way that it does not impact you, does not impact the business. Business also keeps growing. Yeah. The other piece is, how do we be future ready? So how can I help you as you move forward? How can we, as he rightly said, we have also identified that our role is not only financing, but the role can also be extended beyond it within the regulatory guidelines. Regulatory guidelines do not allow us to, cross-sell other products. But let's say, can I create technologies in which the number of houses you visit, before you finalize on that house, can I reduce your number of visits? Can I give you convenience? So those are the kinds of things that we are looking at. I think the key challenge always is, going to be for a financial services company, it's also always going to be risk versus innovation, So there is always ingrained in our minds, we are doing credit, we are looking at your risk appetite. So the challenge is always, that you want to go at a fast pace, but not too fast as well, which derails everything. So that then I think training is another big piece. So we are using a lot of new technologies and training people. But those, I think, are the 2 main challenges. But by and large, the good part that's happened with COVID is that it has really shaken the assumption. So people are also now ready for digital. We would have never thought home loan can be done digitally. Nobody in the company would have also thought. Now the paradigm has completely changed. Like we are working a few days from home as well, completely unthought of in the past. Yeah. Though we have all removed the mask, but thankfully that BCP of, working from home still remains. So a lot of good things have happened, which are going to help us as we move forward. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Abhijit. I think you gave us a very practical and a pragmatic perspective of how, difficult or otherwise it is to embrace your past and still make friends with the future, to try and understand how you can work within your limitations and provide the best of both worlds, your legacy systems and your future forward strategies to your customers, because they are the ultimate beneficiaries of all your strategies and all the work that you do in terms of customer service and customer experience. I'd like to take this to Dinesh now. Dinesh, when we talk about creating a customer service-led culture, how do you think organizations should work right from their front lines through their back office and their management? How do all of these work together as a cohesive unit to then be able to develop a customer service-led culture? Because a strategy is only as good as its execution. So how do you make sure that the strategy gets executed and delivers on some of the business imperatives across all of these stratas of your organization?
Okay. So, I heard some very good insights from, all the fellow panelists. So somebody said that, customer service is actually now customer experience, I would say ditto, right? And one of the things that what happens is the customer experience, if you look at the front line, they seem to be carrying that burden on their shoulders. But I don't think so, that's the way to look at it. I think so when you look at, some very basic data, actually, there's a lot of trapped insights that you get from a back office, if I can call them, right? And we've seen that 30 to 40% of, I would say, digitization or digitalization, if I can call it, if it happens there, you can actually take customer experience to a very different level, right? So if I have to look at it from front to back, I love the way you put it. And how management can be, I would say, involved in it. There are 3 or 4 areas that I would look at. And I'll take cue from what Dipesh and Abhijit said, is that it's not only about, the lender or the bank. It's about everybody who is part of that overall ecosystem that have to really get together, whether it is your partners, whether it is your fintech companies, whether it is your digital ecosystems, that have to come together and really, I would say, sing the same song, if I can say it, when it comes to customer experience. So if I have to give some examples, right? I have actually seen, without taking names, few banks who've gone ahead and created like a arena or like a co-working space wherein some of their small businesses can meet their customers and they can engage there. So it's a very simple thing to do, right? But you're going out of the way within your ecosystem to do it. The other angle I would say is, and again, some of us touch about simple things like how you empathetic towards your customer, right? And it's like I say this, right? How can you go out of your way in a very nice way? If I can, repeat that. How do you go out of the way in a very nice way to delight your customer, right? And I don't know, maybe just go ahead and do some mystery shopping on your own digital journey. And you'll realize that where are you probably having opportunities to change, right? Very long time back, we used to do this voice of the customer. That still holds true. Have we really gone out and looked at various segments of our customer and actually seen what is it that they really want? Or are we just giving them a digital journey because we've got now a lot of data available and a lot of analytics available to serve them better? The third angle I would look at is engagement, right? Now, when I say engagement, maybe a cliche, right? I mean, we've heard this, some of us, that it was a very famous saying that what do you do, if you don't train people and, don't upskill them? The answer to is that what happens if you don't train them and they decide to stay back, right? Yes. So, you take that engagement, right? So listen to your employee, right? How do you ensure that you look at an employee journey as much as you look at a customer experience?
Absolutely.
Right? So happy employees get happy customers. Again, we've heard this, right? So how do you go about doing that, right? That's the third. And the fourth, I would look at, just sheer excellence in everything that you do, right? Have a very laser beam focus on everything that you do for the customer to have that, I would say, laser beam need of saying that, am I really giving it my best shot, right? And this could be excellence in delivering happiness in smaller packets, right? So you don't need to always give your customer everything end to end. Start small, start influencing it, start giving them smaller things that they really need. And somebody say just prioritize it, so be it. And then you'll realize that you can build layers around it. And that end to end, if you can stitch it with certain influencing parameters of innovation, right? Then the customer starts enjoying it. How do you also ensure that while you're giving those innovations, you also come up with certain closed user group of innovations or experiments that they're willing to appreciate and you learn from it. So if you combine all of this and, all from a front to back, you'll realize that you started influencing customers and their experience. Yeah, so my 2 cents.
Yes, you summed it up beautifully. Dinesh, and I think you brought in this very relevant point of not just making it a shared responsibility for your frontline, your back office, your management, but also including the entire ecosystem of partners to sing that song. It has to be a symphony, it has to be a chorus. It can't be a single voice propagating the need for good customer service, and that culture has to be embedded within the bones of your organization. That's a very relevant point. Also, the need for bringing in incremental changes into the way you bring customer service, creating that moments of truth, meeting the customers at their preferred channel and servicing them well, create those moments and opportunities where the customers remember that they had a meaningful and impactful engagement with you. I think that's really critical. And you also spoke about the need for going out of your way to service the customer and in a nice way. I think these are relevant points, and I will take that thread to Vishal. Vishal, you heard some of the points that Dinesh raised in the light of these, remarks that he's made, and given your unique business model. Going forward, how do you see a headroom for improvement in the customer service to your customers, fulfilling their unique needs, their credit delivery requirements?
Okay, let me just clarify a bit on this. Microfinance as an industry, right, hinges on whether it was the start of this business, which Muhammad Yunus started in Bangladesh, or it was Vikram Akula in India. It hinges on just one thing, which is customer experience, which is financial inclusion, right? There can't be a better example of a better customer experience than microfinance. So when I say a lot of headroom, I'm talking about the headroom from the perspective of digital in microfinance.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's I just wanted to clarify that. The second part, and my fellow colleagues, before I answer your question, is that you're absolutely right. Customer experience has to be part of the DNA of an organization. It's not just a customer service unit which is responsible for it sitting somewhere, IVR, chat or bot or whatever, but it has to be a DNA part of it, right? So the way I look at it, and my team and we look at it at IndusInd and Bharat Financial Inclusion from the micro. In that
sense, it's a part of your organizational fabric.
That's right. That's right.
Sector.
Right. Because the whole sense is financial inclusion for that women, which we kind of, right. So it's as, and we empowering her, right. So it can't be a better one. And her need is a loan of 30,000 rupees. Right. And that's all she knows. And in absolute transparency, her expectation is not beyond that. Right. Okay. So having said that, so as of right now, in terms of digital and the customer experience we're talking about from microfinance perspective, I think the way we're looking at approaching things is that, as I was talking about the large distribution we have, we're trying to track each contact our customer makes with our loan officer. And we see that contact in terms of any query, any resolution which he needs as a defect, right? And how can we kind of solve that defect? It might sound very simple, but how can we solve that defect so that the second member doesn't face that, right? So any contact defect is what I'm referring to, right? That's what we're trying to solve right now. Again, very highly fragmented. Every customer has kind of comes with a different and fragmented from distribution point of view and the customer base point of view. So that's what we're trying to do. From digital perspective, I think the adoption of customer, the app which we have has still got some long way to go, not from the UI UX perspective, but from the adoption perspective. So I think getting that customer to use that, moving away from an assisted model to that will be a tough one, but I think that's the North Pole which we have. I think so from microfinance perspective.
Right. Yep. Right now, Dipesh, India is a $3 trillion economy now. It has the largest number of real-time transactions, 48 billion transactions this year, and it's among the 5 most targeted country for cyber attackers. How do you then go about bringing a stable, while we're talking about stable and scalable, but how do you then go about bringing a safe customer experience? How do you make sure that security is not neglected in this entire journey towards fast, scalable, and all of those good must-haves, nice to haves? But how do you make sure that security still remains an important imperative?
Right. So I think the best way to give fast customer resolution while keeping security in place would be to have your software developer in customer service team, I guess. But that's not a combination that you get in the market. So second best would be to train about technology to your customer support, while train about customer service or customer experience management to your software or technology team as such. And of course, the other teams that Vishal and Yashoraj both mentioned about, right? So, see, when a customer reaches to your portal, first of all, of course, we all are fighting in order to make intelligent bots in places. So, while that is being done, right, we've spent a lot on data analytics to make sure that a customer's query is answered before the intent of the question is completed, right? You come up with relevant suggestions and everything, right? So that is there. But at the same time, you also have to make sure if the customer query reaches to your portal, maybe any customer service management portal whatsoever, you would want to have that answer handy the moment the question clicks your dashboard, right? So in that time, I believe a best way to do that is make sure that you finally segregate your customer sensitive information from the interactive portals that you have with your customer, because these are the portals that you don't tend to build in-house. You tend to buy it from somewhere else, right? But at the same time, being a BFSI, right, you have to comply with the regulatory bodies wherein forget the customer support team. Even your internal team may not have privileges to the information that the customer provided during the onboarding journey, right? So at that time, you make sure that you have a good segregation of sensitive data versus, you categorize the other part of data accordingly. You give right kind of experiences, right kind of controls, right kind of shortcuts to your teams, right? Oh, thanks for the buzzer. This is not a good customer experience. All right. And lastly, you make sure that you train your entire team, right? Of course, although you would want the entire team to manage the customer experience, but the one that is, depicted for the role should be trained further, to make sure that they are crisp, short, unlike us. That's all.
Now, Yashoraj, in your previous response, you were talking about the ways in which organizations can build customer service capabilities within their teams with limited resources at scale. So how do you see, cognitive capabilities and automation playing a role there?
No, that's definitely interesting, and I'll keep it short as well, the paucity of time. So, we all spend like a massive amount of mental bandwidth and team bandwidth in building up our KYC stacks, and we put all those KYC solutions. But the question we need to ask ourselves is that, do we really know our customer, right? And if the answer is yes, then customer experiences don't need to be as bad as they are, right? The reason that they are probably is because either we don't care or we don't know our customer well enough, right? And if we do, then we did not put everybody through the same process as part of our product, right? Like if you know somebody and you know what the requirements are, how fast you can evaluate them in case of credit, then you should evaluate them fast enough. You should not make them go through the same hoops and processes that anybody else that you don't know as well has to go through. Like for example, as was cited, we also started a WhatsApp journey in which we say that for a certain segment of customers, we give credit just based on the name of the customer. You come in, you say, hi, I'm Yashoraj, and the next line is you're approved for credit. Like you get credit on chat. Because we don't think that we need to know anything more about that customer. It's evaluated, KYC is done, underwriting is done, everything's done at the back end. So experiences needs to be seamless and fast and in line with what the customer expects, right? At least, and that is exactly what cognitive capabilities and AI helps you to do. Like, for example, you need to start from the basics, but if you want to build on top of that, then obviously like you use your data to kind of know your customers better and then obviously give them what they expect from you. And more so from like existing customers, because existing customers are the biggest brand ambassadors of your product, right? Like, and your experience need to be better for existing customers by a significant margin. Today, if I go to a restaurant and ask, and a waiter comes to me and says that, sir, do you want continental, Chinese, Indian? I say, I want continental. I go there 5 times and he asks me the same question. I say, I want continental. The 6th time I go there, I want him to ask me that, do you want continental, right? Like not ask me the entire same thing again and again. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Like, can companies get to know me better if I'm using them frequently, and then offer me things that they feel that I generally prefer, right? And it's not a hard thing to say, and it's not a hardest thing to solve for as well. But we need to like somehow make steps to kind of get there. And that's exactly what cognitive technologies, data science, machine learning also helps you to do at a slightly more advanced level. That's pretty much what I'd say there.
Right. Thanks, Yashoraj. We'll quickly build on that, and I try to get closing comments from each of the panelists on what are some of the trends and technologies that they see which will help them create humanized, contextual, and intuitive customer service models. We'll start with you, Abhijit. Very quickly, if you could just give me bullet points on what are some of the trends that you are looking at including within your roadmap.
So actually, we are not looking at any trends. We are just listening to the customer, and many of the things come in. I always believe tools and technologies don't solve the problem, but finding ways and channels through which we can listen to feedback at scale is what we are looking at.
Okay. While I'll second what Abhijit said. I think so. There is a balance that we can have between man and machine, and that's one angle that we are looking at. There are advantages of balancing that. Second is there's a lot of advanced analytics that has come into play, and those are areas that we're exploring. Last but not the least, given the segment that we are in, there is a lot of opportunity that you can really do with with AI and ML, and those are few, I would say, quick points that can really help from a trends perspective.
Thank you. Vishal?
So I already talked about it. So one is the app experience which we want to give, which might sound kind of dated, but for our set of customers, that adoption is very, very critical. The second is how do we kind of give a personalized product offering from not just the ticket size perspective, but from the pricing side also, which we're testing is because we have enough amount of data which we kind of use and kind of the millions of customers we have. And that's something is allowed by RBI now because it's a highly regulated business, right? So we're going to be exploring on that. How do we get a better pricing to the customer from product risk perspective? I think these are the two things which we kind of looking at.
Dipesh?
Looks like I'm watching a lot of sci-fi movies these days. So to be honest, I'm actually expecting my Alexa or Siri device to book a next vacation for me, deducting the necessary amount from my bank account and applying for a loan, getting sanctioned, etc., etc. Just making sure that it takes care of my next roster whatsoever. But jokes apart, I mean, that's one of it, in fact, right? That's something that's going to happen in near future. And beyond that, I believe... wish. No, of course, that's not that far. And beyond that, I believe there are already banks that are already in, metaverse. So these are some of the technologies that are definitely bound to be there in near future.
Yeah, Yashoraj, you've answered a part of it in your last question, but very quickly, is there anything that you would want to add?
I'd just say one thing, and very, very, very simple. In customer service, like what we'd like to do is that make every single person in your entire teams pick up the phone and speak to customers. It's not as a customers that raised a complaint or something. Just call up customers, understand who they are, why they're coming to you, what they're experiencing. And trust me, like that itself will give you insights that can transform your product in ways that people don't think about generally.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, gentlemen. In the time that we had, I think we covered some of the business challenges that organizations are facing, the opportunities that they see in terms of improving their customer service, the way they are looking at tweaking their business model and platforms to make that possible, how they're embracing their legacy while also trying to make friends with the future and the opportunities that it brings. We also spoke about the most important theme that emerged was the need for listening to the customer, and that's a very, very relevant point. Working along with your employees, your management, your ecosystem partners to make this a shared responsibility. I think like in most things in life, the earlier you start on the journey, the better it is. With that, I think we would like to wrap up this session. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your insights with us. And thank you so much. You were a very patient audience. Thanks once again.